focused on chat. Doing pretty good. Try on that.
So good evening and welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. My name's Mary Jane. Nice to meet everybody. I'm going to put the link to tonight's PowerPoint presentation into the chat box. And I'll probably be doing this a couple of times during the presentation. So download it because that'll give you a lot of information that we may or may not cover tonight, depending on what's going on. I really hope that this will be an opportunity for you to ask questions and to get some answers about how to get this internship thing figured out. And so I really want to make sure that you know that this is pretty much open to whatever kinds of questions, whatever kinds of comments, things that you need to ask. I've got a rough outline of what information I think you need to know, but this is your presentation. So please, 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 please ask. Stuff in the PowerPoint is pretty self-explanatory. So you should be able to get the information that I think you need from the PowerPoint, even if we don't discuss it. But my name is Mary Jane, and I am the owner of musictherapyworks.com. I'm a board certified music therapist. I am also an internship director at a facility called Lake Mary Center, which is located in Paola, Kansas. I've been a board certified music therapist for almost 28 years, and I've been an internship director for 22 out of those 28 years. I have my business, musictherapyworks.com, is a educational training product, how to simplify our lives as music therapists kind of website. So it's for music therapists by music therapists. And I encourage you to check out that website and other links to things that I have, just because it'll kind of give you an idea of some of the products and things that I have here. So thank you for being here, and we're going to talk about how to get your music therapy internship. Now, I do need to preface this by saying that this is my opinion. This is things that are rooted in fact, and I can kind of demystify some of the reasons why you have certain requirements because of why you have those requirements. But not every internship director is going to have the same exact feelings and the same exact responses and things that I do. So I'm just going to give you as many tips as I possibly can. One of the things that I also want you to know is that I do a 8-week webinar seminar sessions for music therapy interns, and I asked them last Tuesday of some advice that they would give to somebody who was looking for their internship, and so I've got some notes here to share with you from interns who are actually in the process right now of being an intern. And so there you go, I got a little bit of that as well. Now, as far as this conversation is concerned, feel free to unmute yourself, feel free to ask questions, feel free to interact however you want to or can, because like I said, I want this to be something that you get your answers answered. And so you'll need to chat or talk to me about it, so that way I know what's going on. And I keep up with chat pretty well, so if you want to just talk that way, feel free. If you want to unmute, feel free to do that as well. All right, so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how to get ready for your internship search. We're going to talk about contacting an internship director for that very first inquiry. Then we're going to talk about the application. And if we have time, we'll do the interview and then we'll do follow-up. And as always, questions or comments are perfectly fine. So anytime you have a question or a comment, feel free. I did want to let you know that this is being recorded and it will be available to people for a month afterwards with the link, just so you know that that's happening here. All right, so the first thing that I think confuses many of us about internships is the types of internships that are out there and available for you as a music therapy student. And right now, the American Music Therapy Association has 2 different types of internships that are available. The first is called a university affiliated internship, and the second is called a national roster internship. And The history of this was that in 1998, we had two music therapy associations that merged into what we now know as the American Music Therapy Association. Each one of those associations required a clinical internship of about 1,040 to 1,020 to 1,040 hours of immersive work as a music therapist under the supervision of a music therapist. But each association sent their students out in a different way. Folks who were part of the National Association for Music Therapists used the national roster of internships. And basically that was all music therapists in the country that were interested in taking students to be trained could set up their own independent internships and then accept interns as they came. The folks who were from the American Association of Music Therapy, or the AAMT, didn't have quite as many music therapy students and former grads out in the world to do those types of things. And so the university faculty took primary responsibility for overseeing all of those internship placements. And so if you were going to like NYU or Temple University, your internship was under the auspices of your professors. Now in the National Association model, once you got your internship, all of your supervision went to that offsite music therapy supervisor. So when the two associations merged in 1998, we decided as a big body of music therapists that both models could move forward. And in the last, 23 years, both of those formats, national roster and university affiliated, are still in existence, but they have really become very, very similar. So basically the only difference between a university affiliated internship and a national roster internship right now is how much your university wants to get involved with overseeing what you do as a music therapy intern. So music therapy supervisors like myself have the choice of accepting interns from universities, directly from the universities with university oversight, or we have the option of being a national roster internship where we have less oversight by the universities. I personally am a national roster internship director and have been my whole time, primarily because I've never really found a university to be, I guess, concerned with what I'm training interns or how I'm training interns. So if they've come to me from a university affiliated internship program only, they've felt comfortable enough letting interns be under my auspices and my supervision that they haven't really felt like they had to be directly involved with supervising the intern. And so basically, the only real difference between the two now is that I have full autonomy over who I accept, how many interns I accept, what their assignments are, what kinds of grades I give, those types of things. Whereas if I was a university affiliated music therapy supervisor, the university would be telling me what to do with interns. And so there's a little bit of difference with that. So that's the biggest difference that you need to know about for getting started is, does your university have university affiliated expectations where they will place you, they will talk to people, they will get all that information for you? Or are you encouraged to go look at the national roster of internships to find your own placement? Or is there a combination of both? Or does your faculty work with you and find you the perfect thing that you need to do? So to get ready for your internship, that's the first thing you need to know from your faculty is, where, are we a university affiliated only kind of university? Or are we a national roster only university? Or are we whatever happens kind of university? So that's the first question you need to ask from your academic advisor is, what type of internship are they encouraging you to find? And then you can start the process. you need to come up with some ideas and you need to know some things about yourself as you're going into this process. And one of the things that I do, I write lists. And so I write lists for all kinds of things, and it really helps me organize. So however you best organize information, start an internship file, something where you can gather information little bits at a time or find out different things that you want to know. But you want to know, first of all, where do you want to be an intern? And this kind of goes into not just, do you want to be an intern at a school or at a hospital or in a mental health facility, but also, do you want to stay close to where you are right now? Do you want to move wherever an internship is? Do you want to try someplace completely new that you've never been to before? That's important for you to know, because those decisions are going to help guide your internship process and your search process, but they're also going to provide you with some boundaries about that search process. Now, if you get through asking yourself all of these questions here and you really don't know, then you can just go out into that internship search with completely open minds and attitudes to find your internship. But some people have very specific requirements, like I need a place where I can live pretty inexpensively, or I need a place where I can at least get food, breakfast and lunch paid for. What kinds of things are you looking for in your internship? Is there a specific population that you're interested in? If so, great. If not, great. You could find things that are going to work for you, but you're the only person who can decide that for yourself. I personally will never work in hospice. That's just my own personal issues. And so I know that music therapy clients who are in a hospice situation I'm not the best therapist for them. And so I acknowledge that and move out into the world and let hospice music therapists do what they do very well. What kinds of things are you willing to do as a therapist? Are you willing to be an activity assistant for part of your internship? Are you going to only look for a position where you're only doing music therapy full time? If you're interested in working in a hospital, you may be asked to do some things that are not strictly music therapy, but that are child life related. Is that okay with you? Because if it is, then you can find an internship where that can happen. If it's not, you can find an internship where that won't happen. You just kind of have to know where your boundaries are. The next one is a big one. How much money do you have to support yourself during your internship? The hard fact out there is that most internships in every profession are unpaid. And in music therapy, we are no different. The majority of us who offer internships, unfortunately, cannot offer a stipend, cannot offer financial assistance because of the way our positions are funded. To be a music therapist in the state of Kansas in a special education facility, which is where I work, you have to be board certified. And so in order for me to provide music therapy services, I have to provide oversight to all of them. If my interns who are currently considered volunteers at my facility, if my interns were paid a salary and were given a job title, then my interns could be taken away from the music therapy training program at any time to be substitute behavioral health technicians in the classrooms, to do overnight work in our residences. And that becomes extremely complicated and complex when you start to think about, but the real purpose that this person is here is to do music therapy, not cover a classroom. But because they're being paid, the faculty, the facility can ask them to do anything. So think about how much money do you have to support yourself. Internships are flexible. So if you're going to need to have a full-time job and do your internship part-time, you can arrange to do that. But the time to do that would be during your application and interview process before you accept your internship. Because if you accept an internship with me and I'm expecting you to be there full time and you come in on the first day and say, oh, by the way, I can only work 2 days a week, then all of the agreements and all of the clinical training and agreements and all the things that we've had to do are just gone. One of the nice things, though, about having flexibility in an internship setting is that if you come to me during the interview and say, I really, really would love to work with your particular population, but I'm not going to be able to support myself without a job. Then we can talk about, okay, so here are the accommodations that we would need to make. 2.5 days in the music therapy clinic doing music therapy work would mean extending your internship from this date until this date. But I need to know that when I'm accepting a music therapy intern, so I can plan every other music therapy intern that's coming before and after you to accommodate requirements that I have as an internship director. So make sure that you kind of have that clear understanding that people will work with you if necessary, but we've got to know that it's necessary. And then next, when do you want to start your internship? And that kind of gets into the first type of thing that the interns wanted me to tell you. First of all, everybody's timing is different. So you may be sitting in a class with classmates who are saying, I've got an internship, I've got an internship, I've got an internship. And you may not have one yet. You may not have even started the process of thinking about it yet. Everybody's timing is different. And so there will be some of that perception that, maybe the people who got their internships quick are better or, more prepared or things like that. It's really not the case. The case is that we all progress through this the way we need to progress through this. So they said, take the time you need off. If you need to have a year to save up money to pay for expenses for your internship, then take that year. It's okay to do that. There is no requirement for the number of years that you have to before you have to start taking classes over again. When I first started, there was a 5-year limit. If you didn't finish your internship and your degree within 5 years, then you had to go back and you had to start doing refresher classes. There is no longer that requirement through AMTA. There might be a requirement through your university about how long you have to complete a degree, but it's no longer through AMTA. So if you need to take some time, it's okay. Look at off schedules. There are some internships that will accept people in April or September rather than the typical January, July type of internship starts. And so look around to see what will work. I personally did my internship from October to March, and it was great because I had 6 months in between the end of classes until when I started my internship where I could work and I could save money and I could practice my skills and do things that weren't as class oriented, but that were very much functional skill development that I still needed. And so think about, when do you want to start your internship? Okay. So you have thought these things through, you have your list started of, I want to go here, I want to work with these types of people, I have heard about this music therapist or this music therapist one way or another, and I've talked to my university faculty and they have recommended that I go this path or this path. Then it's time to start getting ready before you do your first contact. And so the first thing to do is to update your resume. Look at all of the things that you have done, really flesh out the clinical experiences that you have had in your resume, because I, as an internship director, I'm going to look at your resume and say, oh, look, has worked with this population of persons with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities, and has worked with this population of adolescents and mental health. That looks like a good match, has a little bit of experience with both of my populations, maybe not combined, but has at least a working knowledge of what's going on. So brainstorm everything that you've done, use your $10 words, check your grammar very, very carefully. Always, always, always. And then you're going to start researching the facility. Now, okay. So with,
I do have a question about resume real quick. So some places ask for your resume specific to the music therapy sites that you've been at, and some people will ask for both a description of the sites that you've been at and the regular work resume. So do you need to have both, like, at all times, or?
it would probably be good to have that, or at least have a really good copy paste kind of function where you can take out the part that's going to happen. Because when we get to the application portion of this, you only give people what they ask for. So, you know, like, for example, I don't ask for a resume. I don't ask to see my intern's resume until they're almost finished and ready to graduate. Because honestly, what I rely on more is the application. Do you follow instructions? Well, that's test number one. And then test number two is, how do you and I seem like we work together? And so for me, your resume is nice, but it's not something I need during the job process. So you'll want to make sure that you are looking very carefully about what each place wants and asks for, and you give them those things. So having a resume that is clinical experience only versus a more traditional resume is perfectly fine. Just make sure you know who wants what and do that very carefully. So if you're going to be, if you're in a university affiliated internship, then you need to talk to your academic faculty about who they want to send you towards, because they'll have a list of a whole bunch of supervising music therapists that are approved through their program, and they will let you know that information. Here are the people you can contact, go for it. If you are going to be in a national roster type setting, then it's time to get to know that bulky, horribly difficult database at the American Music Therapy Association, and to start looking for your internship. So that's where those questions that we talked about come in handy. If you know that you really are dying to go to the wonderful state of Nebraska for your internship, you can knock out a lot of extraneous stuff by putting in, it's like, I always have to look at this to see what it is, because I can never figure out what it is when I'm just not looking directly at it. But if you go to the AMT website, under Education and Careers, you can find national roster internship sites, and it'll bring up the database. And if you go down to member type, you click on the drop-down box, you can find national roster internship site. And if you don't put in any other information whatsoever and you just click search, you're going to get a listing of all the roster, the entire music therapy roster, which is currently 9 pages long and has about, oh, I'd say about 15 places per page. So quite a lot of information. If you have more decisions that you've made, then you can start to narrow down that search a little bit, so you don't have to go through 9 pages of national roster internships. You're going to want to look and see what kind of strikes your fancy. What are the things that are similar to populations that you would like to work at? What are some of the buzzwords and the keywords that you're thinking of for an internship? If you're thinking children and adolescents, then who's offering internships where children and adolescents are focused? If you're thinking more eclectic, like looking at a private practice type of an internship where you get a little bit of all kinds of different populations, you can sort through that as well. And start your list of contacts. These are the people that I would like to talk to and I would like to contact about information about their internship. Once you decide who you're going to contact, then there's a couple of things to think about. It's always better to presume formality than informality. So if you write an email to me that says, "Dear Mary, I want to be your intern. Please send me information at this." That's going to throw up bells, because first of all, my name's not Mary, it's Mary Jane. And so if you're addressing me in a way that is not what I have written down in my contact information, then that's kind of a red flag. So the first thing that you want to do is, when you're looking at your internship sites, is copy down the name that is down for contact information exactly as it is written on that national roster, and use that as your format. I would much rather see Dear Mary Jane Landaker than Dear Mary. because if you have looked at my contact, you'll see that it says Mary Jane Landaker, and that just helps me know that you have looked and paid attention to the information that I've put out there. You want to look at the little bit about all the information that you can find. Now, you can find my facility on the web if you look it up, but you're not going to find information about the music therapy internship because my facility does not advertise internships on the facility website. So you'll get a little bit of information about what the school is like, what the facility is like, but not music therapy specific contact. And so you're going to want to ask me for that. So first contact, again, use my full name. Talk to other music therapists you know. Get a little bit of an idea if they know me, if they think we'd be a good match, because you never know. And you might have a professor who's worked with me and has said, oh no, you don't want to work with her. Or you might have a professor who's worked with me and is like, yes, definitely go do that. So check with other music therapists that you know. And then in your request, introduce yourself briefly, a couple of sentences about where you're going to school, about when you're starting to think about your internship, and maybe a sentence about why you chose my particular internship as something that interested you. Brief is better than long. Most internship directors don't really keep track of who asks for information because you can ask for information from as many places as you want. And you can get all the information from every single one of those national roster internships that are out there. I don't keep track other than just kind of shuffling requests over into another file just in case one day I think, well, I wonder how many inquiries I got in the year 2020. Okay, and then there's timing. If you haven't heard from somebody in 2 weeks, repeat the request. And if you haven't heard back from somebody in 4 weeks, then move on. Cross them off the list and move on. The national roster is not updated as frequently as internship directors change. They try to keep on top of that as much as they possibly can, but things happen very quickly in the world of music therapy. And so there are times when, yes, 2 months ago, I thought I was offering an internship position, and now the answer is no, I'm not, because of facility situations or because I found a new job or whatever. So if you haven't heard from somebody in 2 weeks, repeat that request. After 4 weeks, just assume that they're no longer getting those emails and move on. All right, and then start an internship file. Now, when you start to get information, start to organize this information in a way that makes sense to you. First of all, put on contact information for the internship director. Some internship directors don't mind email. Some want to be called. Some are perfectly fine with being texted. Put down that contact information so that way you know how to best reach whatever internship director you're going to pursue information from. Write down application deadlines. There are some very competitive music therapy internships where you have to have your completed application in and ready for review a year before the internship starts. There are others that will take you up to the last minute if necessary. I kind of fall in the middle. I like to have my application time closed 6 months before a start date, but I don't typically make my decision until about 4 or 5 months before a start date. Everybody's application deadlines are going to be different, so write that down somewhere that you can see it and see it pretty quickly. And then start looking at administrative requirements. Every national roster internship director is required to have a fact sheet, which is sent to people who are asking questions. And on that fact sheet, there should be a section that says administrative requirements. Excuse me. These are where we put down any kind of training you need to have, any kind of vaccinations you might need to have, any types of security checks, fingerprinting, TB tests, etc., that you'll need to have. The one that you need to be very, very aware of is the legal affiliation agreement. And the legal affiliation agreement is an agreement between lawyers of the facility and lawyers of the university about who's responsible for training what types of things with you as the intern. This becomes a big deal because if your university lawyers can't agree with the facility lawyers, then your internship cannot happen until that agreement has been completed. So if there is a legal affiliation agreement requirement on an internship, then you need to tell your academic advisor. And some of them may say, oh yeah, we send people there all the time, so we already have that taken care of. It's not a problem. And others may say, oh, that's a new site. Thanks for letting me know. If you get accepted, we'll get that started. And they have to do that. And the respective attorneys then have to talk to each other and decide what's going on. So sometimes that leads to a delay in your start date because the lawyers can't agree. Look to see what other kinds of parts of the application are they going to require. Does the internship director want to see your transcripts? Put that down. How many letters of recommendation do you need? What types of essay questions are they going to ask? Is there going to be a live interview? Is it going to be an online interview? What are the requirements for that? Are you going to have to do some music demonstration? Are you going to need to come to the facility and be there for a day? Up until this last year, interns who came to my facility needed to come down to my site because it's kind of a weird site. And you really have to be there to experience what is going on because it's unique and it's really hard to express that over a video chat. And so look to see what those requirements are. I, as the internship director, can require just about anything. You as the intern have to decide whether or not that's something that you can or are willing to do. And it's okay to say, yeah, no, I can't come down to Kansas to do this interview. That's fine. Then start to do your research, looking around. How much money do you need to stay in the internship area? Start looking at apartment costs. Will you need a car? In my town, technically you wouldn't need a car if you were willing to stay within the environs of our small town, which has about 6,000 people. It does have 2 grocery stores and a super Walmart. So you could probably get just about anything you needed if you didn't have a car. You could probably walk from one end of the town to the other in about an hour. And so, you know, you don't have to have a car, but most places it's nice to have that kind of thing. Do you need to have liability insurance for yourself? Check with your university about that because some universities have liability insurance for you because you are still technically their student. Other places require you to have a personal liability policy. They aren't very expensive for students. Can you find inexpensive housing? Will you need to work before or during your internship to make ends meet? Okay. AMTA has some funky requirements that happen. The first is you may not submit an application more than 1 year in advance of your desired start date. So if you want to work at a facility that only accepts internships in January, you have to wait until January 1st to send in your application. If you send it in December 31st, technically that's a violation. So 1 year in advance. You may only have 4 active applications at a time. So you can only send out 4 applications to your internship to begin with. If you receive a thank you but no thank you letter from an internship director, then you can send out another active application because that active application is then considered no longer active. So you can send out to another. One of my interns on Tuesday said it's okay when you get declined from an internship because it's not that you're not good enough for that internship. It's that there are lots of mitigating circumstances that happen that probably have very little to absolutely nothing to do with you and as a person. And most of the interns that I've spoken to over the years have stated very clearly that they're really glad they didn't get the internships that they didn't get because they've heard things or they've experienced things or they felt like the internship that they did finally get was what they really needed. And so think about you know, there's only so many internship positions. There are a lot of music therapy students out there. Your match is out there. It's just may take a little bit longer to go. And again, that's when the pressures from people around you start to become a little bit overwhelming as well. Your path is your path. It is okay to not get there as quickly as the person sitting next to you. It's okay.
I actually have another question in regards to this topic.
Yeah.
You are an internship coordinator and director. How many applications do you get typically? I mean, does it vary very much? Okay.
Yeah, it varies significantly. Like sometimes I'll get 5 or 6 for an internship position, and sometimes I'll get 0. Just kind of depends.
Oh, it's not like hundreds and thousands.
No. Not for me, at least. Places that offer stipends are extremely competitive. So like if you're going to be looking at a season's hospice type of thing, which offers a really good stipend, if you are bound and determined to get a season's hospice internship, then you may have to wait a while to get that, because they are extremely competitive. Because hey, why not get paid a little bit? You know, if you could possibly do that. But I would say that probably most internships, at least like mine, that are like I offer breakfast and lunch to interns. They never eat it because it's cafeteria school food kind of thing. But I'm like, I offer it. It's the one perk I can give to interns. I didn't get that during my internship, so I'm always very thrilled that I can offer that. You know, there are internships out there that people are not as aware of, and so keep looking. You know, it's okay not to know for sure where you want to go, but it's also okay to go to someplace where it's a little less competitive. Sorry, something just fell. Sorry, don't know what it was.
How do you find those places? I've been looking for some lesser competitive places. Would you say private practices are considered less competitive?
I would say it depends on where you are and where they are. I have the advantage and the disadvantage of being within an hour of 2 big music therapy schools. So as far as those students are concerned, my position is pretty valuable because they wouldn't have to move anywhere. They could stay where they are and commute. And so that makes it a little bit competitive for those 2 schools. You know, if you're going to someplace where there are lots of music therapy interns looking for music therapy settings, then there's going to be a lot more competition just because there's a lot more people available. I would say looking for places that are smaller, you know, like I said, the town where I work, it's a town of 6,000 people. And not everybody is all that interested in coming to rural Kansas for 7 months out of the year to work in a school with kids who have severe emotional and behavior issues and things like that. So looking for something smaller. Now, one of the things that is difficult for you all coming up is all the stuff that we've gone through in the past year. Lots of internships were not able to continue offering internships because in the blink of an eye, as you know, everything changed. And all of a sudden there wasn't direct client contact. All of a sudden in my facility, we had direct client contact for most of this past year, but every 6 weeks, how we did music therapy changed. And so the first 6 weeks, no volunteers were allowed on the campus at all. So my interns were having to do things away from me, and I was having to come up with things to do for them to do while I was working full-time with clients. And then we got back together and we worked with some clients, and other clients were off and not getting any music therapy services, and that lasted for 6 weeks. And then everybody came back, and that lasted for 6 weeks, and then nobody came because we had an outbreak of the virus at my school. And so we had 6 weeks of now we're completely virtual, but nobody can see us because we don't have Zoom classrooms or Zooms. I mean, it has been a roller coaster ride, just basically from March 13th until now. And hopefully, knocking on wood, things are starting to calm down a little bit, and people will get back to being able to accommodate interns a little bit more easily because things aren't changing constantly. I suspect, I don't know this for sure, but I suspect that the number of active internships that are going right now has decreased just because of circumstances that are happening. I think that those opportunities will increase again once we get more people vaccinated and get closer and closer to moving out of this pandemic state. But at this point right now, finding an internship may be a little bit more difficult because those of us that are offering internships have only certain amounts of positions that are available. And some of us are taking a step back and saying, I need to figure out how to do my job when it's 50% telehealth and it's 50% live. And I don't know how to be a music therapist, much less help somebody else learn how to do this job. So just so you know, have a little bit of patience. We will get back, and your internship is out there waiting for you. You just have to wait for it and look for it. But if you're looking for something that might be a little less competitive than things that are in smaller areas, might be a better bet. Okay. So as you're preparing your application, read it very carefully. Everybody is different, and this is where keeping your lists are important. I got a transcript once with a note attached to it that said, "Dear Mary," okay, number one, don't call me Mary. You didn't ask for a transcript, and I guess you forgot it, so here it is. No, 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 no. Don't presume that somebody forgot something because they didn't ask for something that somebody else wanted. They don't want it. And this is test number one of your internship following directions skills. Can you complete the application the way I've asked for it to be completed? And if you can't, okay, I'll put you at the bottom of my list of applicants because, you know, I can't spend 7 months teaching you to follow directions. So test number one. There are lots of tests all the way through this, just things that are going on. And those things are reciprocal as well. You need to be testing me for information as well to find out if I'm somebody you want to be working with. Only give them what they want, nothing more. If you're not sure if they want something, then an email just saying, hey, just curious about this, that's okay. But don't presume that they forgot to ask you for your resume just because everybody else has asked you for your resume. When you are sending your application in, when you are submitting it via email, when you are doing whatever you need to do to submit that, indicate in your introductory letter, email, etc., whether it's complete or whether other things are coming. So I have to, internship directors have to require a letter of eligibility from your faculty. And basically what this means is that your faculty have agreed that you have completed your training to the point where they feel comfortable sending you out into the world of internship. They feel like you have appropriate musical functional skills, a good foundational understanding of what music therapy is, and that you have completed all of the degree requirements except for that internship. And so that letter has to come, excuse me, to me from your faculty advisor, from your program director. I also require 3 letters of recommendation. And I don't want them necessarily coming through your email address. I want them coming from independent sources. So if you send in your application without those letters of recommendation, that just a quick note saying, here are the 3 people that are going to be writing letters of recommendation for me, and they'll be sending them to you at their convenience. That's helpful. Take a little bit of time to research how to write a good cover letter. A good cover letter tells the person who's reading it a little bit about you, a little bit about how you think you fit within the information that you know about the facility, and just kind of a little bit of information about why you're looking at that particular internship. Not everybody's going to ask for a good cover letter, but it's good practice to get into, especially because there will be times when you do have to write one. And I'd give you a template, except there's like millions of them on Google that are just as good. And as always, spell check and grammar check, because that's another test that happens. I have a lot of friends in HR who say that as soon as they get an application, they're looking at it and looking through for spelling and grammar, and people who don't demonstrate good, clean writing skills go to the bottom of the pile. So if that's an area where you feel uncomfortable or a little bit challenged, then have other people read it before you send it out. I always use 3 plus me. So I read it and then I get 3 other people to read it. Somebody who knows a little bit about music therapy, so that way they can say, oh, well, yeah, I understand that you use this acronym NMT here, but not everybody's going to know what NMT means. Somebody who has no idea what music therapy is at all, to see if they can understand a little bit about what I'm saying. And then one person who's, well, usually that's my mom. She's my spelling and grammar checker. So 3 plus me is my role. Submit your application. Pay attention to how and when internship directors want to receive your application. I think for the most part now, electronic submission is pretty typical, but there may be a couple of holdouts out there who still want you to print out everything, put it in an envelope and send it. So pay special attention to that. Again, if you don't follow their instructions, you go to the bottom of the stack. Not every application submission will lead to an interview or an audition. And the thing is, you never know for sure what people are looking for. And so don't get too bogged down in the, I sent this out and they said no thank you, or I sent this out and they said yeah, come to an audition, but then I didn't get the internship. Not every application is going to end up with that interview or audition. And not every interview or audition is going to lead to an internship position either. Okay. Places to look for internship information from my interns the other week were looking specifically at regional social media websites. So instead of just relying on the national roster, also going to the region, one of the 7 music therapy regions. They tend to be a little bit more up to date than the national roster is. And then Music Therapists Unite is sometimes a good place to find internships. There are also a couple of Facebook groups. Music Therapy Internships is one. Music Therapy Interns and New Professionals is another one. And those are often places where people will just say, hey, we've got this opening, come on and apply. Yeah, okay. Any questions about the applications? 4 at a time. Once you get one no thank you, you can send out another one. Okay, so you've sent out your applications and you get somebody who says, we would love to talk to you a little bit about becoming an intern at our facility. Lots of different kinds of interviews. Right now, as far as I know, almost every interview is happening via electronic, so electronic media at this point. Some of these rules may not apply if you're sitting at your home in front of a computer, but we'll talk about it. Again, if you're actually going to be going, drive to the facility early to test how long it'll take you to get there. You don't want to be late, so take a little bit of time. Look at as much social media sites for information as you possibly can. Get as much information about who's there, what they do. Look at the pictures. What kind of dress code do they have? What other services do they offer at the facility? What is their mission? Almost everybody has a mission statement right now. Look at their mission. Get comfortable with their mission, because you're going to use that in your interview to demonstrate to them that you kind of understand a little bit about how they're approaching client care. And then just brainstorm a little bit. What are some sample sessions that you think would work for the population that's treated at the facility? So if you're going to come to my facility and you see children and adolescents ages 5 to 22 with intellectual and developmental disabilities and concurrent chronic psychiatric concerns, what are some sample session plans that you might focus on with my particular clientele? And they don't have to be ginormous, great big, you know, this is every step I'm going to do. It may just be, here's a brief outline of what I think I could do at this facility. All right, so this is my rule, and it's a rule that served me really well, but you arrive no more than 15 minutes early, and you arrive no later than 15 minutes early. You want to be there 15 minutes early. And the reason you want to be there 15 minutes early is that gives you enough time to use the bathroom. It gives your interviewer enough time to finish up whatever he or she is doing at that point, and then get prepared for you. 15 minutes early is not presumptuous. It's not like, here I am, I'm an hour and a half early, drop everything you've got to pay attention to me. It is enough time for you to finish whatever kinds of paperwork you might need, and again, take a bathroom break, go find something, give yourself a time. I am compulsively early. If I'm not someplace like this an hour early, I am so anxious and so anxiety ridden, but by the time I get into the interview, I'm a total mess. So I bring a book, and I will find where I'm supposed to be, and then I will go park at like the gas station or park at Walmart parking lot, read my book, and then drive there and get there 15 minutes early. You want to make sure that you're dressing considering what you have to do. I had an intern applicant come once, and I told her we're going to be running most of the day. And so wear very comfortable clothing. Jeans are perfectly fine at my facility. Wear tennis shoes because we're going to be up and down. We're going to be playing games. We're going to be running back and forth across the gym. And she came in a very nice suit and 3.5-inch spike heels. And I just thought, oh no, you know, and she, at the end of the day, she was like, wow, I'm really tired and my feet hurt. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I told you to wear your tennis shoes. And she's like, oh, I never wear tennis shoes. And I was like, So we broke her of that habit. She was my intern. By the end of 7 months, she was wearing tennis shoes, and now she never wears anything else. But you want to dress considering what you have to do. If you have to lead a session and you have to sit on the floor, you want to make sure that you are not displaying skin that you shouldn't be showing to potential clients. It's a good idea to have somebody else check your outfit. So if you like lean over to pass somebody an egg, you're not like showing them all of your midriff kind of things. So for the most part, in professional settings, it's a good idea to make sure that you're covered from neck to knee. And just make sure that that is all covered as much as you possibly can. And you also don't want to get a brand new outfit the day before you go do your interview. You want to have something that you feel comfortable in that doesn't scratch in weird places, that makes you twitch or something like that. So if you do have an interview outfit, make sure that you're comfortable in it. Make sure that you've worn it several times before you go out into an interview with it. Okay, you go into the interview. I don't know about you, I get clammy hands. And so I put a clean Kleenex in my right pocket. I always make sure I have pockets. I squeeze it before I shake hands with anybody, because then when I shake hands with people, my hands might be cold, but they're not like all wet and gross and clammy. And yeah, so that helps to decrease that. Make eye contact with all interviewers. Try your best to remember names. Some places it'll be just you and one other person. In some places it might be you and the clinical team, and there might be 8 music therapists sitting there talking to you. So try to remember names as best as you can. Take with you a hard copy of your resume, your references, and questions that you have for interviewers. If you have those things in hard copy, then if they say, tell me a little bit more about your practicum that you did in spring 2020, you have that resume, you could pull it out and you can say it was da 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 da. You can cover all of that information. Because trying to rely on your memory in an interview situation may not necessarily be the most comfortable situation for you or the other people who are around you. So write those things down and take them in with you to the interview. Interns said, remember that it is as much your choice about where you do your internship as it is the internship director's choice. So yeah, I may invite you to be my intern after an interview. You have to decide whether or not that's something you want. And it's okay to say, yeah, no, thank you. I don't feel like this is going to be the best match. Do you think you're going to like working there? You know, if you don't feel like you can be safe or happy in a particular place, listen to your instincts and trust your gut, because those exist for a reason. And so think about that very, very hard. If you have an audition, my facility, I do require an audition. I require that interns come to my facility with a therapeutic music experience prepared for a group that I have given them a description of, and they have to lead that experience singing and playing a functional instrument and engaging my students in some sort of experience. Auditions are not uncommon for internships because we really want to see your functional skill level, because I feel like I can help a person learn how to have functional music skills, or I can help you learn therapeutic music interaction skills, but I can't really do both in a 7-month period. That's a lot of work to do. And so I have an audition to help me see that. I figure if I place a person in front of a group of people that they've never met before with a description and say, okay, you've got 10 minutes to fill with music, go, then that's a really good test of them under pressure. So there's another test that happens, that interview, that audition. Memorize all the music that you're going to use during the session. An audition for this type of thing is not the time when you pull out the latest thing that you learned in guitar class. You want to do something that you know so well, you can go on autopilot and you don't have to think too much about it, because you want to make sure that you're comfortable and that's coming through. If you make a mistake, take a deep breath and say, well, I'm going to try that again. You know, we're all human, so mistakes happen. It's okay. Be prepared to improvise to accommodate client needs and preferences. If a client really, really, really hates the sound of the metallophone, what can you do in place of the metallophone to help get towards that goal? You know, if a xylophone is going to work better, then pull out the xylophone instead of the metallophone. Write down your session plans before you start your audition. So have that list of things that you're going to do. If somebody asks and says, can I have a copy of your session plan? They should have told you that ahead of time, that they will require those session plans. Then you can have it and hand it to them. But I would always say to them, this is, as you know, this is just one possibility. You know, as soon as clients walk in, this may completely change, but here's what I'm intending to do. And by kind of indicating that to someone, it's showing that you are client directed. And so you're going to be kind of looking around at the clients that you have in order to make decisions about how you proceed with them therapeutically. Because it's okay to change things if the clients show you that. They need that. Don't forget to breathe. It's one of those things that you think you wouldn't have to think about, but it really is important to really do those deep breaths. And I don't know what's going on, I'm feeling a little nervous. Take that deep cleansing breath and go. Listen to questions carefully. Answer questions that are asked, and don't offer information on questions that weren't asked. Take your time and ask your own questions. This may be the only chance that you have to find out if, you know, when a start date is, or what types of books does the internship director ask you to bring with you, or what types of materials are available for interns to use, or any kinds of questions. Write them all down, even if you think they're silly. Sometimes I have interviewed so many applicants that I think I've told everybody the same information, but I've actually only told 2 people the same information. So the other people didn't get that information. So ask, so that way you know the answers to your questions. Good questions to ask about are, when is the projected start date? You know, when do they think that you're going to start? I say on my application that I accept interns in January, March, June, and September usually, but my start dates are flexible based on the other interns that I have. So if you say, you know, I'm not exactly sure that June would be something I could do, but I could do an August start date. That may fit in perfectly fine with my schedule. It may not, but it might. And if you don't ask, you don't know. You need to know what the next step is in the interview process. When will applicants be notified of the decision? What is that timeline? And that's really important because you don't want to be starting to call people to find out if you've been accepted or not. You want to wait until that deadline has passed. What kinds of materials are available to therapists? Are you supposed to bring your own instruments and your own visual aids and your own guitar, or are those things going to be present for you? What's the amount of time in direct client services where you're actually doing music therapy with music therapy clients? And how much time are you spending in documentation, in-service training, case meetings, other non-therapy relationship or responsibilities? Is this a commuting kind of internship? About how many hours per week do they think you're going to be driving from place to place? Those are things that you need to know. And then any other questions that you can think about. Again, there is no silly question. And a lot of times when you're interviewing people, you think you've told them, but you may not have. So ask. Okay, you finish up your interview, your audition, you're done. You want to follow up. You want to stay in their memory. I suggest that you send a written thank you note through the mail, not email. I mean, email's fine, but if you send a written thank you note, it just shows that much more thought and planning. And oftentimes I write my thank you note sitting in my car immediately after the interview. And because it's fresh, it's right there. I've already stamped the envelope. I'm able to write my thank you note, and then I'm able to drop it off in a mailbox on my way out of town. So I make sure that they get it. You want to say, you know, thank you for taking the time and for making the effort to talk to me. And if you have any questions, if they asked questions and you feel like the answer that you gave was not as complete as you might have wanted it to, that's a good opportunity to say, and upon further reflection, I'm thinking about your question about, you know, how do I feel about runny noses? I would like to say this. And that is a question I ask during internships or during interviews, because my kids are juicy and I need to know if you're going to be okay with that or not. You know, but that gives you an opportunity then to pull that back into, here is my interview, and thank you so much for doing this. And then you want to wait patiently for contact from the facility. They should be able to give you a time frame. I usually say, you know, I hope to make my decision by the end of the month. If you haven't heard from me by then, please feel free to email me and ask me. With that time frame, don't contact them until that time frame has passed. And then you can contact them, but be kind of cautious. You know, a simple email saying, I'm just checking on the status of my application. Thank you so much, would be good. 6 emails saying, hey, I'm trying to make decisions about my internship, and that comes across as pushy. And then again, you need to decide whether you want to be there. If your instincts are telling you, this is not the place I need to be, then listen to them, because you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. If you ask direct questions and they cannot give you direct answers, then take that into consideration, okay? You want to make sure you're going at a place that you need to go to. So what other kinds of questions do you guys have about the process, about what's going on, about how to do this?
I have a question if no one else is interested in asking. So I've sent out, oh gosh, I've sent out 4, 5, 6 so far. I started looking for internships over the summertime, hoping that I could find something soon after school ended. Now I'm looking at places for the fall or January. And a lot of the places, actually all of the places that I've applied to so far have been children's hospitals.
Okay.
And so far I have received 3 no's. So the other 3 more applications are live right now. I was wondering if you have any advice, particularly for applying to children's hospitals. And I don't know if that might not be in your wheelhouse, but you know, if you have any kind of advice, I would really, really appreciate that.
Yeah. It's not something that I've necessarily done. I would say that probably at this point right now, children's hospitals are pretty restricted by who they can take. And there may be, I don't know if, I'm assuming that these are cross state line type of situations, and that there's probably going to be a lot of difficulty with finding an internship in a hospital setting, especially if you haven't been COVID-19 vaccinated and if you're coming from another state, because we've got a lot of you know, like in my facility, if I leave my state, then I have to spend 10 days at home without pay because of COVID-19 restrictions at this point. And so I have to make a decision then about, you know, is that trip 30 miles away from here to cross the border, is that going to be okay or worth a 10-day quarantine kind of thing? So there may be some of those restrictions that are happening that are just right now, people are just immediately saying, you're from Kansas, nope, can't have you right now. As far as looking at applications themselves, I would say really focus in on that mission statement. Look at what are they saying their purpose is. How are they going to do this? And make sure that your answers to questions are using that same language. So if they're saying things like to enrich the lives of children who have been involved in life-changing medical situations, then you need to be saying, you know, I have a passion for assisting kids who have had life-changing medical situations, and here is how I do this. And really echoing that mission statement as much as you possibly can across answers, and really looking in at how are you, specifically you, Olivia, able to do that nobody else would be able to. And so highlighting situations or therapeutic experiences that you've had, or experiences that you've had outside of the music therapy world that illustrate that particularly, because your application is very much specific to, this is me and this is why you want me, this is why I want to be there, type of a thing. And so use those mission statements. Talk to people if you can. Like if you know people who've been past interns, talk to them, find out what they've taught, you know, what kinds of things they do. Get as much information as you can. The music therapy world is a very small world, so chances are pretty good somebody in the music therapy world is only like 2 or 3 steps away from whoever you are talking about. So if your professors don't know a particular music therapist, then they know somebody who knows that particular music therapist. So, you know, find out as much information as you can. And then look to see, are these highly competitive sites? A lot of times the children's hospitals are. And so it's just kind of one of those realities.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions I can hope to answer for you all?
I have a question. What to you is the most important thing you look for in an intern in terms of the audition process of the internship application?
For me, I'm looking for, can you sit up in front of a group of strangers you've never met before and manage to remember how to play your chords for the song that you've selected, type of thing. I want to see how functional can you be in a very stressful situation. I also want to see if you're going to be interacting with my students. You know, while you're playing your song, can you make eye contact with this group of people you don't know? Are you asking them questions? Are you you know, getting down into the eyes gaze of the kid who's not looking or paying attention? Do you have some basic group management skills? You know, can you notice that people aren't playing, and while you're singing, can you sing a prompt that says, everybody play now, here we go, you know, kind of thing. So I'm looking at really how you interact with my students while still being as functional as possible musically, which is why I recommend that you pick something that you know really, really well. You know, it's a song you've played most often in practicum. It's a song that you started off playing, and you can play it in your sleep because you've been playing it since you first picked up a guitar.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so, you know, as much as you can possibly do during an audition specifically, without having like your iPad right there, you kind of thing, doing as much as you possibly can, relying on your musical skills because you have them, otherwise you wouldn't be applying for an internship, and being able to do that and to look at the clients that are in front of you, or the mock clients that are in front of you if you're having to do a telehealth example. You know, really looking for that relationship and that engagement with the client is probably huge for everyone. So, all right, if there's nothing else, that's what I've got for you tonight. Here is my, let's see, come on. There's my contact information if you would like to check out the website. And thanks for attending. And like I said, this will be available for a month. And then after that, I'll move it over to YouTube, and it'll be available if you want to see it, but not as easily. Make sure that you get tonight's PowerPoint PDF, and I'll be sending this out in an email as well. Probably not tomorrow, probably Wednesday or Thursday. So thank you for being here tonight. And I
Thank
hope
you.
I answered some of your questions.
Yeah.
Take care.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.